Welcome to From Manuscript to Ministry, created and produced by Elder William Moore, the podcast where faith meets the written word. Each week, your hosts David and Martha dive into powerful, self-published books by Christian authors who are boldly using their God-given voices to impact the kingdom. Whether you're an aspiring writer, a reader seeking spiritual growth, or a ministry leader in search of authentic resources, this is your space to be inspired, encouraged, and equipped. Let's explore today's featured book and uncover the life-changing message behind the manuscript.
How do you react when your external world is in complete chaos? I mean, I really want you to genuinely pause and, examine that for a second.
Yeah, that's a tough question to sit with.
It really is. Like, when the absolute bottom just drops out, you get that dreaded phone call from the doctor with a diagnosis you completely weren't prepared for.
Right.
Or you check the bank account and the numbers just do not add up at all.
Right.
Or maybe a relationship you thought was absolute bedrock just shatters overnight.
Yeah.
What is your immediate visceral reaction?
Well, for most people, it's panic, right? Or denial.
Exactly, yeah. Because if you are anything like, well, almost everybody walking this earth, there is this immense crushing pressure to just immediately put up a front.
Oh, absolutely. It is almost a reflex at this point.
It really is. This reflex to slap on a brave face, march out your front door, and project this flawless aura of invulnerability.
Like nothing is wrong. Like everything is totally fine.
Right. We are conditioned by everything around us, whether it's social media, corporate culture, or even just well-meaning friends. We're conditioned to believe that if we show a single crack in our armor when life's storms hit, we are somehow failing.
Yeah, you're supposed to just be made of titanium.
Exactly, titanium, but that's the problem.
Well, and the irony there is titanium might be incredibly strong, but under enough continuous stress, it doesn't bend.
Right.
It just snaps catastrophically. The psychological and, well, the emotional toll of maintaining that flawless aura you were talking about is staggering.
It has to be exhausting.
It is. We call it cognitive load. You are spending so much of your internal energy just trying to convince everyone around you that you're okay.
And trying to convince yourself, probably.
Exactly. Subconsciously trying to convince yourself that the chaos isn't getting to you. It's like you are out in a torrential downpour, but you're pretending it's a sunny day.
Which obviously doesn't keep you dry.
No, not at all. It just depletes the very energy you desperately need to actually survive the storm.
It just leaves you entirely hollowed out. And honestly, that exhaustion is exactly why we are here today. The mission for this deep dive is to completely tear down that exhausting, brittle illusion of appearing strong.
It's so needed.
It is. We are going to strip away the masks, the fake bravado, the performative resilience, and instead we want to uncover the actual structural architecture of genuine spiritual power. We're talking about the mechanics of building a truly unshakable heart.
Which, that requires an entirely different set of blueprints than just erecting a nice-looking facade.
Right, it's completely different.
Yeah, I mean, you can paint a piece of drywall to look like solid steel, but the first heavy wind is going to expose the truth pretty quickly.
That is such a good point. And to find those real blueprints, we are pulling from a phenomenal stack of source material today. We're looking at some ministry notes, some book excerpts, and script outlines, all centered around a profoundly impactful book by Elder William Moore.
Yeah, from ordinary to extraordinary. It's brilliant.
It really is. Our entire conversation is going to be anchored by one specific, very disruptive insight from his work. It's quote number 29.
That's the one.
And to really understand the mechanics behind that quote, we are going to dig deep into its biblical roots. We'll be specifically looking at Judges chapter 6, verse 12, and Psalm chapter 112, verses 6 through 8.
Those texts are so fascinating because they don't just offer abstract, feel-good encouragement.
Right. They aren't just platitudes on a coffee mug.
Exactly. They provide a literal structural diagram for how the human spirit can process and endure extreme pressure without just collapsing.
And before we jump into that diagram, I want to set the tone for you, our listener.
Yeah.
Because we are not just sitting here in an ivory tower philosophizing about hypothetical bad weather, right?
No, not at all.
This is about real life. This is about the gritty, terrifying realities you might be waking up to right now. The business that is hemorrhaging money. The family dynamic that is just fracturing beyond repair. Today is about the daily decision to stop relying on your own limited, exhausting, titanium-masked strength and to allow God's limitless power to dictate your internal posture.
That's the key right there.
It is. We are speaking directly to you right where you are in the middle of whatever winds are actively blowing in your life.
Okay.
Let's unpack this.
Let's do it. So let's start at the epicenter with, quote, number 29 from Elder Moore's book.
Right. Lay it on us.
It reads, "A powerful person stands tall even in the stormiest of times."
A powerful person stands tall even in the stormiest of times.
Right. Now, on the surface, I know that sounds like a classic motivational poster. But to grasp the actual gravity of that statement, we have to look at the contrast Elder Moore is setting up here.
Okay, what kind of contrast?
Well, he is drawing a sharp, uncompromising line in the sand between society's definition of strength and authentic spiritual power.
Ah, okay. Because society's definition of power usually involves dominance, right? It means exerting force over your environment. Like if you are powerful, you stop the storm. Or at the very least, you act like the storm is just bouncing right off of you.
Precisely. The societal mask of appearing strong is fundamentally about the rigid denial of pain.
Right, just stuffing it down.
Yeah, it is projecting an image that says, I am completely untouched by this tragedy. If you are feeling profound fear, society basically dictates that you hide it.
Which is so unhealthy.
It is. If you are grieving a massive loss, you are supposed to suppress it and just get back to work. It is a loud, aggressive defiance.
But wait, how is that different from what Elder Moore is saying? Because he says a powerful person stands tall.
Right.
If I'm terrified inside, but I force myself to stand tall and keep going, aren't I just putting up that same mask?
No, I want to push back on this a little because standing tall sounds dangerously close to faking it till you make it.
Yeah, I totally see why you'd say that. And that is the crucial distinction we have to make. It really comes down to the internal mechanics versus the external visual.
Okay, unpack that for me. Well, society's version of standing tall is like taking a massive oak tree and pouring a block of concrete around its trunk to keep it from moving in the wind.
Oh, wow.
It's rigid, it's defiant. And when a Category 5 hurricane hits, that rigidity is exactly what causes the trunk to just snap in half.
Because it can't give it all.
Exactly. The source text describes true strength, the unyielding spirit, not as rigid denial, but as quiet, steadfast fortitude. It is not about eliminating the movement, it is about where you are anchored.
Okay, so it's not a concrete block.
No, definitely not. Let's upgrade the metaphor from a tree to modern structural engineering.
Oh, I like this.
Think about how we build skyscrapers in earthquake zones or hurricane paths like the Taipei 101 tower.
Right, they have to deal with massive winds.
Right. If you build a massive skyscraper to be completely rigid, to stubbornly resist any movement, an earthquake will just shatter its foundation, or high winds will just snap the steel.
Because the force has nowhere to go.
Exactly. So engineers put a massive, heavy pendulum inside the top of the building. It's called a tuned mass damper.
I've seen videos of those, actually. It's just this giant golden sphere suspended by cables, right?
Yes, that's exactly it. When the typhoon hits and the wind exerts terrifying force on the building actually sways.
It literally moves in the wind.
It leans into the wind. It feels the full force of the environment. But as the building sways one way, that massive internal pendulum swings in the exact opposite direction.
Oh, wow. So it counteracts it.
It absorbs and dissipates the kinetic energy of the storm. The building survives because it acknowledges the reality of the wind, but it relies on its internal architecture to counteract the destruction.
Oh, that completely shifts the paradigm. So society's definition of strength is telling us to build rigid concrete buildings that inevitably shatter.
Yes.
But Moore's unyielding spirit is the tuned mass damper.
You got it. A spiritually powerful person feels the grief. They acknowledge the fear.
So they don't just ignore it.
No, they sway under the heavy reality of a cancer diagnosis or a bankruptcy. They aren't pretending the storm isn't happening.
Right.
But internally, they have a counterweight. A steadfast fortitude anchored in God that absorbs the kinetic energy of the panic and keeps the structure from collapsing.
That is so powerful.
They stand tall not because they are untouched by the wind, but because their internal engineering is actually designed to handle it.
It makes so much sense. And it really takes the shame out of feeling the pain, You are allowed to feel the building sway.
You must feel it. Surrendering to the reality of the storm is actually the mechanism that unlocks the strength. The energy you used to spend pretending you weren't in a crisis can now be redirected into navigating it.
But that brings up a really difficult reality.
Yeah.
Knowing that you have an internal counterweight is great theory.
Sure.
But what does it actually look like to activate it? Because when the winds hit 150 miles an hour, things get chaotic instantly.
They really do.
How does a person with an unshakable heart practically behave in the dead center of a crisis?
Well, the sources outline a clear behavioral shift. The first major marker of this unyielding spirit is that it maintains its resolve when things are at their absolute worst.
Okay.
It completely decouples its internal stability from external circumstances.
It decouples them, meaning your resolve does not go up and down with the stock market.
Exactly. It is incredibly easy to feel resolved, to feel full of faith and to look composed when life is operating in a comfortable margin.
Oh, for sure. When things are good, it's easy.
Right. When the savings account is padded, when your kids are thriving, faith feels natural. But the primary stress test of an unshakable heart is its capacity to retain its core convictions when the pressure mounts to an unbearable degree.
When the resources drop to zero.
Exactly.
And when you say resources drop to zero, let's get specific here.
Yeah.
Because when we talk about facing hardship, it's so easy to use sanitized language.
It is. We like to gloss over it.
Right, but we are talking about sitting across from a lawyer going over divorce papers you didn't want.
Yeah.
We are talking about staring at a pile of past due notices, knowing the business you built with your own hands is going under. We are talking about the suffocating, isolating fog of grief when a loved one passes away.
Of really heavy stuff.
Exactly. The natural human instinct in those moments isn't to stand tall. It is to evade. It is to pull the covers over your head, numb the pain, and just hide.
Which is why the source material points out that the next vital characteristic of this spirit is that it faces hardship head-on.
It faces it.
It categorically refuses to shrink back in fear or evade reality. Because, honestly, evasion is incredibly expensive, psychologically speaking.
What do you mean by expensive?
Well, when you are hiding from the reality of a financial collapse, you are burning cognitive bandwidth maintaining a delusion.
Here's where it gets really interesting. But practically speaking, how do you logically do this?
What do you mean?
Well, if I am staring at $0 in my bank account, looking reality head-on doesn't magically pay my mortgage.
No, it doesn't.
If I drop the mask, I am just a person with no money and a lot of fear. How does an unyielding spirit change that math?
It changes the math by shifting the locus of control.
Okay.
The sources say accepting this unyielding spirit is an active, daily choice. It's the courage to look at the brutal facts, the debt, the diagnosis, the divorce, directly in the eye and say, this is happening.
Acknowledging it.
Right. Acknowledging this is terrible and I cannot fix it today. But I choose to stand firm anyway because this storm does not have the authority to define my identity.
Ah, I see. You separate the problem from your identity.
Completely. You cannot solve a complex financial crisis or navigate a grueling medical treatment protocol if your mind is consumed by an identity crisis.
That makes total sense.
If you believe the storm means you are a failure, you will panic.
Yeah.
If you recognize that the storm is just weather and your identity is anchored in eternal bedrock, your mind clears.
You get that bandwidth back.
Exactly. You regain the cognitive capacity to take the next necessary step.
The storm is just weather. I don't want that on a billboard. That is so good.
It's a great reminder.
But here's the problem with taking the next necessary step. Once you are in the thick of a massive life crisis, visibility drops to zero.
Right.
You can look a crisis right in the eye, fully accept that it's happening, but still be completely terrifyingly lost. When the familiar landmarks of your life, your routine, your income, your health are suddenly gone, vertigo sets in.
Oh, absolutely. Disorientation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how do you navigate when you don't even know which way is up?
Well, the source material provides a fascinating answer to this. It says the unyielding spirit uses resilience as its compass.
Okay, let's break down this compass metaphor, because usually when people talk about a compass, they mean pointing to some sort of external true north.
Right, like a destination.
Yeah, like a 5-year plan or a specific goal. But in a blizzard, you can't see the mountain you're trying to climb.
Exactly. And a traditional magnetic compass relies on external forces, and it can actually be thrown off by local magnetic anomalies.
Oh, that's true.
Let's use a more accurate mechanical analogy for what the sources are describing here. Let's talk about how submarines navigate.
Okay, submarines. I'm tracking.
When a submarine goes deep underwater, especially under the polar ice caps, it loses all connection to GPS.
Because the signals can't reach.
Right. It has zero external visibility. There are no landmarks down there.
So how do they not just drive in circles for months?
They use what is called an inertial navigation system. Before the submarine ever submerges, while it is still in port, it aligns its system to a fixed, known coordinate.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Once it goes underwater, it uses incredibly precise internal gyroscopes and accelerometers to measure every single movement it makes.
So it tracks its own movement.
Exactly. It doesn't look outside to find out where it is.
Okay.
It calculates its current position strictly based on its internal measurements relative to that original unshakable starting point.
That is brilliant. So resilience isn't a magnetic compass trying to find the new landmark in the storm. Resilience is an internal inertial navigation system.
Exactly. When a crisis hits and your external GPS goes dark, you don't panic and start chasing whatever looks like safety.
Because that leads you anywhere.
Right. You look inward to the spiritual coordinates you calibrated before the storm hit. The promises of God, your core values, your foundational beliefs.
I love that.
Resilience uses those internal coordinates to guide the very next faithful step. Even if the final destination is completely obscured by the fog, it keeps your spiritual direction locked in.
But inertial navigation systems drift over time, right?
They do, yeah.
I mean, the longer they are underwater, the more a tiny calculation error compounds. Don't we eventually need to surface and get some kind of external validation?
In the physical world of submarines, yes, they eventually need to reset. But that is where the spiritual architecture outpaces the mechanical metaphor.
Okay, how so?
The foundational coordinate of an unyielding spirit isn't a static number. It is an active, ongoing relationship with God.
Oh, so it's a living coordinate.
Yes. The recalibration happens constantly through faith. You don't have to wait for the storm to end to ensure you are on the right path. The alignment happens step by step.
It dictates the next step, not the 10-year plan, just the next right thing.
Exactly.
That takes so much pressure off. You don't have to figure out how you are going to survive the next 5 years of a chronic illness today. You just have to navigate today.
Which is much more manageable.
It really is. And that brings us to an aspect of the source material that I found incredibly disruptive. It states that an unyielding spirit overcomes obstacles with grace and strength.
Grace and strength. It sounds poetic, but it is actually highly tactical.
Tactical is the exact right word, because my immediate reaction to hearing grace in the context of a storm was a bit cynical, if I'm being honest.
How so?
Well, grace can sound passive. It can sound like being a doormat while life just runs you over.
Yeah.
But the sources are framing grace not as passivity, but as the ultimate rebellion against a storm.
What's fascinating here is how counterintuitive that is. Let's expand on that. Why is grace a rebellion?
Because look at the natural trajectory of a crisis. If you go through a brutal bankruptcy or a vicious betrayal, the gravitational pull of that event is designed to make you bitter.
Absolutely. It pulls you down.
Right. It is designed to make you cynical, angry, and frantic. People survive storms all the time, but they crawl across the finish line, totally corrupted by the experience.
They do. They lose themselves.
Yeah, they lash out at the people who stayed to help them. They compromise their integrity just to stop the bleeding.
They allowed the storm to change their internal architecture.
Right. So if the storm's entire goal is to corrupt your character and induce panic, then navigating that crisis with dignified, quiet grace is an act of absolute defiance.
It's fighting back without throwing a punch.
Yes. Overcoming with grace means you aren't just surviving, you are maintaining your structural integrity. You are asserting sovereignty over your own soul. You are looking at the chaos and saying, you can take my money, you can take my comfort, but you cannot dictate my character. I will not become bitter.
That is a phenomenal insight. Grace is not passive. It is kinetic resistance against entropy.
Kinetic resistance. I love that phrasing.
And what the sources highlight is that this specific behavior, this dignified, quiet strength, serves a massive secondary purpose. It becomes a living, undeniable testimony to everyone watching you.
It completely disrupts how the world defines power.
It shatters the world's definition. The world expects power to look like aggressive retaliation, right?
Right.
If someone wrongs you, the world expects you to destroy them. If you lose everything, the world expects you to have a public meltdown.
Because that's what's normal.
Exactly. When people watch you walk through the absolute worst, darkest moment of your life, and they see you doing it without losing your kindness, without surrendering your faith, and without succumbing to frantic desperation, well, it creates a profound cognitive dissonance in the observer.
Because mathematically, it doesn't add up.
Yeah.
You should be in pieces right now. Why are you standing?
Exactly. It forces the observer to realize that your strength cannot possibly be coming from your circumstances because your circumstances are horrific.
Right.
It proves, visibly and physically, that your power is sourced from an external, superior bedrock. You are securely held by God.
But this all circles back to a massive question. We've established that society's rigid mask snaps in the wind.
Yes.
We've talked about the tuned mass damper, facing reality without identity panic, navigating by an internal spiritual gyroscope, and using grace as kinetic rebellion.
All vital pieces.
But none of that is achievable through sheer human willpower. I cannot simply decide to have a tuned mass damper in my soul. It has to be built. Where does this unyielding spirit actually originate? What is the actual structural blueprint holding it all together?
To find the blueprint, we have to go directly to the foundational texts that inspired Elder William Moore's work. The source material points us explicitly to two biblical passages.
Okay, let's get into those.
The first being Judges chapter 6, verse 12.
Okay, Judges chapter 6. This is the story of Gideon. And if we want to talk about someone whose external world was in complete chaos, Gideon is the ultimate case study.
He is the poster child for environmental anxiety. Let's look at the historical context really quick.
Please do.
The Israelites are being brutally oppressed by the Midianites. And this wasn't just a political occupation, it was systematic economic devastation.
They were just stripping everything.
Everything. The Midianites would wait until the Israelites grew their crops, and then they would swarm the land like locusts and destroy all the sustenance. They left absolutely nothing.
Total resource depletion.
Right. So Gideon is utterly terrified. When we find him in chapter 6, he is threshing wheat in a winepress.
Which is a weird place to thresh wheat.
Very weird. Structurally, a winepress is a pit carved into the ground. Threshing wheat requires wind to blow away the chaff, so it is normally done up on a high hill.
Right, where the wind can catch it.
Exactly. But Gideon is down in a hole, hiding, doing a job incredibly inefficiently, purely out of paralyzing fear that the Midianites will see him and take what little he has left. He is evading reality. He is projecting weakness.
He is the exact opposite of, quote, 29. He is not standing tall in the stormy times. He is crouching in a pit.
And that makes what happens next so incredibly profound. The angel of the Lord appears to him in that pit while he is hiding and says in Judges chapter 6, verse 12, "The Lord is with you, mighty warrior."
Mighty warrior.
Yeah.
To a guy hiding in a hole.
I know, right?
I mean, from a human perspective, that sounds almost sarcastic. Or at best, it sounds like God is totally misreading the room.
It does if you only look at the external facade. But God is not speaking to Gideon's current posture of fear.
Oh, I see.
God is speaking to the unseen architecture that he himself placed inside of Gideon. God confers the identity from the outside in.
He calls it out before it's visible.
Exactly. He identifies the unyielding spirit, the inner valor, before Gideon even realizes he has the capacity to stand tall.
God is defining the internal coordinates for Gideon's navigation system.
Yes.
He's saying, I am the fixed point. I am with you. Therefore, you are a mighty warrior. He doesn't give Gideon a better strategy for hiding wheat. He changes Gideon's foundational identity.
Precisely. The power doesn't originate from Gideon's courage. It originates from God's presence.
That is a massive shift.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this transitions us perfectly into the mechanics of how that foundation actually functions under pressure. And that is detailed meticulously in the second scripture from our sources, which is Psalm chapter 112, verses 6 through 8.
This is the engineering schematic for the unshakable heart. Let's break this text down.
Let's do it. The source material focuses heavily on the New International Version of this text. Verse 6 gives us an absolute, unequivocal promise.
Okay, what is it?
Surely the righteous will never be shaken, they will be remembered forever. The text then elaborates in verses 7 and 8, describing a person who does not fear bad news, whose heart is steadfast, securely trusting in the Lord, and whose heart is established.
Okay, I have to stop right at verse 6. Surely the righteous will never be shaken.
It's a big statement.
That is an incredibly bold, almost dangerous guarantee to make to a listener who might currently feel very much shaken, right?
I get that, yeah.
We just spent 20 minutes talking about how life is full of Category 5 hurricanes. How can the text guarantee we will never be shaken?
It is a bold guarantee, but we have to read the exact terminology carefully. Notice what the text does not say.
Okay.
It does not say the righteous will never be blown upon. It does not say the righteous will never be struck by lightning or flooded or tested.
Right.
It says they will never be shaken.
Meaning structurally compromised.
Exactly. Let's go back to our tuned mass damper analogy, or even the basic physics of a storm in nature. What is the fundamental purpose of a torrential storm?
To destroy things.
Well, structurally, high winds and heavy rains work together to uproot things. The rain saturates and softens the topsoil, turning it to mud. And then the violent wind pushes against the structure above ground to leverage the roots out of that soft dirt. The goal of the storm is displacement. It is trying to move you from where you were planted.
It's trying to separate you from your foundation.
Yes. But Psalm chapter 112 explains exactly why the righteous person defies that kinetic goal. It is because their life, their core identity, and their deepest trust are not rooted in the topsoil.
What is the topsoil in this context? Because I think we all build on it sometimes.
Oh, absolutely we do. Topsoil is anything temporary. It is your bank account balance.
Wow.
It is your job title. It is your social status, your physical health, or the opinions of the people around you.
All the things we usually care about the most.
Right. And all of those things are valid parts of life, but they are topsoil. When the torrential rain of a crisis hits, topsoil washes away instantly.
Oh, that is a terrifying but accurate picture. If my entire identity is rooted in my career and the economy crashes and I lose my job, I don't just lose a paycheck.
No, you lose who you are.
I am completely uprooted. My foundation dissolves into mud and the wind blows me over. I collapse because the thing I was anchored to wasn't permanent.
You collapse because your anchor was shallow. But verses 7 and 8 say the righteous person has a heart that is steadfast, securely trusting in the Lord, and established.
Established.
The original language there implies being propped up, sustained, or permanently fixed. If your identity and trust are rooted in the eternal character of God, you are anchored to bedrock.
And bedrock doesn't wash away.
Bedrock does not turn to mud in the rain.
Which explains verse 7 so perfectly. They'll have no fear of bad news.
Right.
That has always confused me, because bad news is terrifying. But if you understand the structural mechanics we're talking about, bad news is just a localized weather event.
It's just weather.
It's wind and rain.
Yeah.
The steadfast heart doesn't fear the weather because it knows the anchor is secure. Bad news can ruin your day, it can ruin your year, it can cause immense grief, but it cannot uproot your eternal identity.
It cannot compromise your structural integrity. And this is where we really see the fusion of Judges and Psalms.
Bring it all together.
God calls Gideon a mighty warrior, anchoring his identity in bedrock. Because Gideon is anchored there, he can eventually step out of the winepress, face the Midianite army, which is an overwhelming, terrifying storm, and not be shaken.
He becomes, quote, 29.
He becomes the living embodiment of, quote, 29. He becomes the powerful person who stands tall in the stormiest of times, not because he is immune to fear, but because his roots are locked into something the fear cannot touch.
So what does this all mean? Let's take everything we have unpacked today.
Yeah, let's synthesize it.
We've covered the brutal exhaustion of the societal mask, the physics of the tuned mass damper that allows us to feel the pain without breaking.
We talked about the submarine.
Right, the inertial navigation system that guides our next step in the dark, the kinetic rebellion of grace, the inner valor of Gideon, and the bedrock mechanics of Psalm 112. Let's really synthesize this for you, our listener, because this is where the theory hits the pavement in your actual life.
This is the application.
There is a cultural myth out there that says, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. We are told that the tragedy itself, the trauma, the storm, is what builds your spiritual muscle.
We hear that all the time.
But based on the deep dive into these sources today, that is fundamentally incorrect. The storm does not create your strength.
No, it doesn't.
The storm merely stress tests and reveals the strength that God has already established within you. When the winds howl and the rain beats down on your life, it does one thing. It strips away everything that is superficial.
It washes away the topsoil.
Exactly. It washes away the topsoil of your pride, your self-reliance, and that exhausting titanium mask of appearing strong.
Leaving only what's real.
Right. And what is left standing when the mud washes away? The genuine, unyielding spirit.
That's it.
You cannot control the chaotic environment around you. You cannot stop the medical diagnosis. You cannot command the economy to fix itself. And you cannot force other people to treat you right.
You have no control over the weather.
None.
Yeah.
But through faith, you have absolute sovereign authority to determine your standing within that chaos. You decide where you drop your anchor.
That is the crux of the entire matter. Hardship is a revealer. It acts as a diagnostic test of your internal coordinates.
A diagnostic test, wow.
When you are anchored to righteousness, when your inertial navigation is locked onto the promises of God, you demonstrate to the world what authentic spiritual power actually is.
You become a living testimony.
You become a living, breathing testament to Elder Moore's insight. You stand tall. And you do it not with loud, brittle arrogance, but with a quiet, established, unshakable heart.
And as we bring this deep dive to a close, I want to speak directly to you, our listener. We know the statistics. We know that right now, someone listening to this audio is standing in the dead center of a terrifying storm.
Without a doubt.
Maybe it's a sudden crisis with your children that has you awake at 3 a.m. Maybe the career you spent 20 years building is disintegrating right in front of you.
Or maybe a health battle.
Right, a quiet, chronic health battle where the visibility is just zero and you are just deeply, profoundly tired.
It's so exhausting.
Whatever specific wind is howling against your structure today, I want you to hear this truth loud and clear. Weather systems move.
They do. They always do.
Difficult seasons do not last forever. Storms eventually run out of rain.
Amen to that.
But more importantly, hear this. The storm you are currently in does not have the authority to dictate your future. It does not have the final say over your value, your joy, or your ultimate purpose.
It's just weather.
It can only wash away the topsoil. It cannot touch the bedrock. So stop trying to maintain the fake titanium mask. Let the building sway.
Feel it.
Feel the grief, but check your internal coordinates. Look at your true bedrock. Maintain your resolve. Face the brutal reality head-on without letting it define you, and keep taking that very next faithful step forward.
One step at a time.
And do it with the kinetic rebellion of grace. Get moving forward.
And as you prepare to take that next step, I want to leave you with one final, lingering question. A thought for you to carry with you and ponder long after this audio ends.
Let's hear it.
We've established today that a crisis does not build your foundation. A crisis only reveals it. The storm only exposes what is already there. So if a massive, completely unexpected storm were to hit your life tomorrow morning, what materials are you actively using to build your spiritual foundation today, right now, in the quiet, mundane moments before the winds even start to blow?
What an incredible diagnostic question. Are you building on topsoil, or are you drilling into bedrock? We hope this deep dive into Elder Moore's work and these foundational scriptures has given you the structural blueprints to check your own foundation.
It's been a powerful discussion.
It really has. We hope it gives you the permission to drop the exhausting mask and the courage to stand truly strong. Keep your faith anchored, keep your navigation system calibrated, and stand tall. We'll be right back here with you next time.
Thank you for joining us today on From Manuscript to Ministry. If today's featured book encouraged, challenged, or inspired you, we invite you to take the next step, purchase a copy, and support the author behind the message. When you invest in their work, you're not just buying a book, you're sowing into good ground and helping advance the kingdom of God through faith-filled storytelling. Don't forget to subscribe, follow, leave a review, and share this episode with someone who needs it. Your support helps these powerful voices reach even further. Until next time, keep reading, keep writing, keep praying, and keep walking boldly in your calling. God is still turning manuscripts into ministries.